Radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
Let not your heart be troubled. You are listening to the Sean Hannity Radio Show podcast. All right, so I have insomnia, but I've never slept better. And what's changed? Just a pillow. It's had such a positive impact on my life. And, of course, I'm talking about MyPillow. I fall asleep faster, I stay asleep longer, and now you can, too. Just go to MyPillow.com or call 800-919-6090. Use the promo code Hannity, and Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, has the special 4-pack. Now, you get 40% off 2 MyPillow Premiums and 2 Go Anywhere pillows. Now, MyPillow is made here in the USA, has a 60-day unconditional money-back guarantee, and a 10-year warranty. Go to MyPillow.com right now or call 800-919-6090, promo code Hannity, to get Mike Lindell's special 4-pack offer. You get 2 MyPillow premium pillows and 2 Go Anywhere pillows for 40% off. And that means once those pillows arrive, you start getting the kind of peaceful and restful and comfortable and deep healing and recuperative sleep that you've been craving and you certainly deserve. MyPillow.com, promo code Hannity. You will love this pillow. All right, glad you're with us, and happy Monday, and write down our toll-free telephone number. It's 800-941-SEAN. If you want to be a part of this extravaganza, hope you all had a great week. You know, I went to church and met more pastors this weekend than I have in a while, and I'm going to be honest, I loved it. I had a great time. We, Friday, as you know, we ran a concert Friday night in lieu of Hannity, and it was enormously successful. And this was a Vegas Strong concert, a night of healing, and John Rich, Big and Rich, and also we had the best conversations with Big Kenny over politics. Wow. We were going over all of it with, just long, drawn-out political conversations, hanging out on their bus. We had a good time. I met about 127 pastors in Vegas, and then we were at Dr. Robert Jeffers' church in Dallas, First Baptist, over the weekend for 2 services, not just one. And they interviewed me. I didn't have any idea. Apparently, this went worldwide, this interview. I had no idea. And it was live. And then finally somebody said, yeah, all of a sudden texts start coming in. Oh, that was a great interview with Dr. Jeffers. I'm like, huh? I was watching in Vegas. I'm watching in wherever. And then we went to Dr. Darrell Scott. He's the head of the President's Diversity Coalition. And what a wonderful man. He's become a dear, dear best friend. I love him. And he wanted me to preach. And we've had this ongoing argument about speaking in tongues all the time. And but anyway, he's doing so much good work for his community, and he's just such a good guy. Took a lot of heat for supporting it seems any preacher did for supporting the president. All right, a lot coming up today. We have huge developments in the Uranium One front. Hillary, Eric Holder, Barack Obama, the Obama administration are all in deep trouble. I'm going to get to that today. Also, the state of this tax reform bill, is it going to get done? Now, in light of what the Senate did last week, and now they've only created a structure by which they can build the bill. The bill is not out yet, the tax reform bill. In other words, all they've done is they built the framework. So every devil is going to be in the details. Then are you going to get enough senators on board? And then can the Senate and the House reconcile whatever differences they may have in their competing bills? And can they get it on the president's desk, hopefully by Thanksgiving the latest, or the very, very latest by Christmas? That's going to be the challenge and the test. Now, that's the bill that includes 8 brackets to 4. That includes the 20% corporate rate. That includes billions in middle-class tax cuts. That includes repatriation, all the things that we've been discussing. But you got to be careful, because it all matters, when these greedy lobbyists start getting their hands on the ultimate bill and they start asking for this concession and that concession and that concession and this one. At that point, it becomes whatever congressman is beholden to whatever K Street lobbyist, it then becomes a matter of who are they going to put as their top priority. So we'll hit all that today. Jay Sekulow is going to weigh in on the latest as it relates to Uranium One. Oh, wait till you see what I'm laying out for TV tonight. I've been working on this all day. Wait till you see what we lay out tonight. I think you're going to love it. We have such a good TV show tonight. We have Sarah Carter, John Solomon, Jay Sekulow, Newt Gingrich, And Ivanka Trump is going to join us tonight. She doesn't do a lot of interviews, so she's pushing heavily for the tax bill. She wants the tax bill. So we'll look forward to talking to her later today. So the reason I was at all of these, so Friday of this week, it's been a 2-year project. I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to speak very honestly from my heart. I don't like to ever ask this audience to buy stuff. I just don't. I don't want, you know what? And I don't know why. I've always resisted. Occasionally we've sold because somebody said it was a great idea for a charity or a great idea for this reason or that reason. Very, very sparingly, like hats and T-shirts. And then other people say, well, nobody's going to buy it if they don't want it. And I don't know. It's not my thing. I've written 3 books. I felt inspired at the time to do all 3 of them. And I promise you, I'm done with books. The only book I might write was at the end of my career. Everything I really wanted to tell you, but I couldn't because I knew it would get me fired. Which I joke around with people because they like to dump me on my own radio show occasionally for words. I did say one bad word on the pulpit. It wasn't that bad. It's jackass. That's all I said. And I don't think it's that bad. But Pastor Scott, well, he chastises me after the talk we had. But what a great crowd we had last night. Anyway, so we had that. But I got to tell you, I felt so strongly. So one day I see this movie that's called God's Not Dead. And it stars actor Kevin Sorbo. And I knew Kevin. He'd been on the show a couple of times. And I don't know. I said to him, well, if you ever have any other projects, let me know. And maybe I'm interested and maybe we can do something together because I want more movies like this to get out there. And that movie ended up doing really well because it was a really good movie. Very well done, very well produced. A lot of you probably have seen it. And so it wasn't but a couple of days later, he calls me and says, hey, can me, my wife, and this guy, Dan Gordon, come and see you in New York? We've got an idea we want to throw at you. I said, okay, come to New York. So we meet in my office, and they tell me a story. And they tell me a title. And the title is Let There Be Light. And that is the name of the movie. This movie comes out Friday. And the bottom line is, in 20 minutes, I said, yes, I absolutely want to be a part of the project. And what that meant as the executive producer is I am going to help fund the movie and the building of the movie. And I just believed in the project. Now, I didn't know all this Harvey Weinstein stuff would come out, all this corruption, but I knew this. I've always known Hollywood has a political agenda. I've always known, and we've discussed, that the media is corrupt. I've always known, and we've talked about, how there is outright contempt for middle America. And that is all those red states. If you don't live in Hollywood, if you don't live in Los Angeles or San Francisco or Washington, D.C. or New York, it's like you don't even exist. What they refer to as flyover country. And my travels in my life have proven to me that the heart and soul of America are those red states, is that flyover country. And those are people that work hard, play by the rules, pay their taxes, obey the laws, raise their kids. Faith, family, and country is what drives them in life. Nobody's perfect because we've all sinned and fallen short, but good people that make this country a better place every day. And as I looked at Hollywood, and the reason that I kind of was motivated to do this, because these independent projects are hard to do. They're just hard to do because you're not doing it with a Hollywood studio. You're doing it all independently. And the way it works in Hollywood is they have these big budget films, like all the films that were out this weekend apparently bombed. They all had, $50, $60, $100 million budgets. And I'll tell you why they're all bombing. Because people are sick of the same old formula. It's either going to be sex and violence and sex, or it's going to be a cartoon character, or it's going to be robots, and it's going to be, or it's going to be Jennifer Aniston falls in love or breaks up with this guy or that guy. It's the same, and they're going to have a little puppy dog. It's the same thing almost every time. Occasionally there's an innovative movie. My three favorite movies probably or definitely are Gladiator, because it shows you need courage in life. I love that. Are you not entertained? Or Braveheart, freedom, fighting for freedom, or Passion of the Christ, because, as a Christian, you see the real suffering that Jesus Christ did to save us from our sins. So those would be my three favorite movies. And anyway, so when they pitched this movie in 20 minutes to me, I just sat there and I said, this movie needs to be made. And my involvement in it, my title is executive producer. I'm not really the executive producer. I'm the person that funds the movie. And did I have some say on it? A little, but I didn't want any say. Because I always believe if you make a deal with somebody, they've got to step up and do their part. And I can tell you at the end of this movie, and how long has it been in the works? 2 years, year and a half, somewhere around there, that it is something that I'm very proud to be associated with. Here's our problem. We're not connected to a studio. We didn't have the big budget that these Hollywood studios have. And I can tell you it is higher quality than most of these big budget films. And here's what separates it from the other movies you'll go see, if you want to go see it, is it won't insult your intelligence. It is not formulaic. This movie is intended for your intellect, your mind, your heart, and your soul. There's not a person that I have screened this movie for that has not cried. It has a message that does not insult your values at all. And every person that I've seen, that I know has seen the movie, has been touched by it. And that's what I think movies can do. And you're going to go on a roller coaster ride in this movie, an emotional roller coaster ride, an intellectual roller coaster ride. Let me tell you, it starts out. So it's called Let There Be Light. It'll be in about 300 theaters. It's not going to be one of these big 2,500 theater releases only to bomb and make, $1 million back with they had a $100 million budget. So we're going to release it over time. And it's this weekend, I think we'll have 300 theaters. And then we're going to grow from there. And then we have some output deals that'll make it possible at time. But the better it does this weekend, to be perfectly blunt with you, the more access we'll have to theaters, because, theaters are dying right now. They want successful movies. Anyway, it starts out, it shows you the evil, the darkness in this world. And there's a lot of it. And then we sort of phase into and dissolve into a debate that's happening. And Kevin Sorbo is playing an atheist that wrote a book called Aborting God. And he's debating a Christian minister. And the crowd loves the atheist and has nothing but contempt for the Christian guy that's laying out his case. And then throughout this process, you begin to understand, well, how did somebody get to the point where they hate God? How did they get to this point? And without giving the movie away, it's about a transformation of a human soul. And how the impact of his decisions to be part of the paparazzi and the glitterati and a part of, red carpet culture and hot young models and abandoning your family and drinking and drugs and how that impacts everybody else and how it impacts his life, and how he struggles and is being torn between two forces in his life. One, to keep going in the direction he's going because, there's a lot of money in selling this idea of aborting God. And then, but his soul is in conflict. And I can just tell you, you will never figure out the ending to this movie. Unlike most movies, you can figure it out within 20 minutes. Oh, okay, that one's going to die. Or, oh, okay, that one's going to live. Oh, okay, that's going to happen. And I would advise you to bring tissues. The list of theaters is on Hannity.com, where it opens this weekend. We are updating it throughout the week. We're actually even adding as we talk, because now people are hearing about the movie and movie theaters are actually asking for it. Then we'll be updating it at different points when we add a lot of theaters, and we'll put in the theaters that we're adding. And I just hope you can take your whole family. There's nothing insulting to your intelligence or your values, and I think you're going to like it. And I hope so, because if this succeeds, then hopefully others will make more of them. I don't want to do it. But because there's just enough work that I have in my life, this is a lot of work. But I'm very proud of it, and I think you will like it. And I think it'll inspire you and your family. All right? So it's called Let There Be Light, Hannity.com. We got all the details there. We'll talk more about it as the week unfolds. Opens Friday.
October 31st marks the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. Did the reformer Martin Luther aspire to start a new church? Was he a 16th century Che Guevara intending to overthrow institutional authority? Or was this movement a conservative reformation? Find out with the podcast Issues Etc. IssuesETC.net. Real Reformation Radio. IssuesETC.net. IssuesETC.net.
I did not know this till we took a break here. So I gave our executive producer here, Linda, a early copy of the movie. And I don't think she's ever cried 3 times in her life. And you said you cried during the movie. What?
Yeah, there's a scene in the movie.
No, don't, because it's going to ruin it for everybody.
I'm not going to give it away.
There is a scene that caused you, was it like bursting out? Because some people were inconsolable at times.
I mean, there's very few times that I'm...
few times.
That I'm not hysterical. First of all.
No.
But it was very moving. And I think the one thing that's really great about your movie is that if you have kids, one of the things about when you have kids, you're afraid to let them watch anything because you don't know what's going to happen next on the scene. But in this
Did you ever do this with Liam? Because how old's Liam now?
He just turned 2.
He just turned 2. Okay. Do you ever do this? You go in late at night and you just put your hand to make sure he's breathing?
I put a mirror under his nose. It's so bad.
I never did that.
I'm like, do I see? Is it?
No,
I'd
go, and then it's like dark at night, and I'm like pulling out my phone trying to figure out how to put on my flashlight. But the thing is, I still do it. I can't do it. My son's at college, so I can't do that anymore. But I do it with my daughter.
Sure. We're going to do it till the day we die. There are kids.
I think I had a fear of this because my parents had a sister of mine that died of crib death. What do they call it? SIDS.
Sudden death syndrome.
And so I think that I don't think it's ever been proven to be genetic. And then you have all these worries. Well, do you put the kid on the stomach? Do you put the kid on the back? It doesn't matter where you put them. And once they learn how to roll around, they're going to roll around and bang up the whole crib, which is why you put padding on every side. Kids are the only thing in life. I fear nothing. You just worry about your kids. I don't care about anything else except worrying about my kids. I don't worry about money. I never did. I could live in a cardboard box. I don't care. People laugh at it. The only one that I think knows is Sweet Baby James because he's seen my cardboard boxes that I live in.
Very nice boxes, though. Very nice.
All right, we have huge Uranium One news. We'll get to that. We've got Jay Sekulow today. Freedom Caucus members. Will the tax reform bill pass? Phil Robertson now, unbeholden to anybody. He'll join us on your call straight ahead. All right, 25 now till the top of the hour. 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. So last week we told you at length about this corrupt Uranium One deal. And the most insane thing about this story is it goes back to 2009, just as the Obama administration is taking office. And we told you about how the FBI had pretty much picked up that Vladimir Putin, the Russians, had infiltrated the uranium market in America and were up to their eyeballs in it. The FBI had evidence. They had documents. They had emails. They had financial records. They had eyewitnesses. They even had an agent within, sort of in the inner circle and inner ranks, a counter spy agent. I mean, it's like a spy novel. You can't even believe half the time that this stuff happens, but it does. Yeah, I got to that part. I need the part. Who's the guy they're talking about? All right. So anyway, we went into all of this, and then the Russians used bribery and kickbacks and extortion, and they end money laundering, and they end up securing the Uranium One deal. And then we found out that, Bill Clinton, in the middle of this, went to Moscow, and he wanted to meet with the uranium officials on behalf of this deal, and that he got double his normal speaking fee, $500,000 for one speech. And while he was there, he met with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin's the one that wanted to infiltrate the uranium market in America. We find all of this out last week. There's almost a media blackout. And meanwhile, this is the same Russia you've heard a year or so now about. Oh, Russia is trying to influence America's elections. Well, as testimony has been given, they've done it in the past. They'll try to this election. It appears to me they wanted Hillary more than they wanted Donald Trump in office, especially with the ads on Facebook and Google and all these other places. And it gets worse every hour of every day. Headline today, FBI watched and then acted as a Russian spy moved closer to Hillary Clinton. The FBI knew. One of the people, there were 9 agencies that had to sign off. One of the agencies was not only Hillary Clinton's state, but also the Justice Department, and that meant Eric Holder. Eric Holder's Justice Department is in charge of the FBI. And just to add another side note here, we have within the Justice Department, Rod Rosenstein. He knew about the evidence that existed, had to know about the evidence that existed here. Robert Mueller's the FBI director at the time. Who were they to judge anything Russia if, in fact, they knew about this deal, and it's far bigger than influencing the election than any evidence that they've been able to produce to date. Now, this is how it begins. It goes, as Hillary Clinton was beginning her job as the president's chief diplomat, federal agents observed as multiple arms of Vladimir Putin's machine unleashed an influence campaign that was designed to win access to the new Secretary of State, her husband, Bill Clinton, and members of their inner circle. Some of the activities the FBI agents gathered evidence about in 2009 and 2010 were covert and they were illegal. Do you understand what's going on here? Now, I want to get a little deeper into this story. I think actually, and that's John Solomon's headline from today. And over at National Review, there's not everybody that hates Trump over there. There are a few people that are actually fairly objective. Victor Davis Hanson probably is the most objective of anybody over at National Review. But I've always liked Andy McCarthy. And Andy understands this stuff as well as anybody. He said, let's put the Uranium One scandal into perspective. He writes, the cool $500,000 the Putin regime funneled to Bill Clinton was 5 times the amount it spent on the Facebook ads, the ones the media Democratic complex ludicrously suggests swung the 2016 presidential election. I did not know that until I read it in Andy's column. I didn't know it was that little money. I always assumed it was a lot more money. Okay, so $500,000 that they gave to Bill Clinton, that's literally 5 times more than they spent on, all Facebook ads and everything else. So there was not a big financial investment in terms of Facebook ads, et cetera, trying to influence the election. That's not what the media has been telling you. So that's another lie. Anyway, the Facebook ad buy, which started in June of 2015, before Trump even entered the race. I kept telling everybody, I think that if they were going to influence this in any way, it was going to be in support of Hillary Clinton. Anyway, that ad, let's see, Mark Penn, his own estimate, the Clintons' own political strategist, $6,500 went to actual electioneering. $6,500. And meanwhile, Bill Clinton got twice his normal speaking fee, $500,000 payday from the Kremlin-tied Russian bank for one single speech of part of what is now, we now know is literally $145 million funneled to the Clinton Foundation. Now, the person that Bill Clinton spoke to was a Kremlin-tied, a Putin-tied Russian bank, Renaissance. Oh, hang on a second. You mean the Russians had ties into the bank that brought Bill Clinton in? Oh, by the way, the bank had a financial interest in the uranium deal. Shocking. Anyway, so Russia was plotting, and they successfully pulled this off. That is the big danger here. 20% of America's uranium. And we learned last week that they can now export. Remember yellow cake uranium, the whole Valerie Plame, Joe Wilson issue, and Valerie and yellow cake uranium. Well, you make nuclear bombs with yellow cake uranium. And now they can take, Vladimir Putin has control of 20% and can actually transport yellow cake uranium out of the United States. Well, who's he going to sell it to? Or what's he going to do with it? Is he going to sell it to North Korea? Is he going to sell it to the Iranians? So the Uranium One deal, as Andy points out, is not only or even principally a Clinton scandal, it's an entire Obama administration scandal. Of course it is. Hillary was not the only one to cash in. And he goes on to say the Clintons were doing what the Clintons do, cashing in on the public service. Okay, but the problem is all of that is illegal. All of that is a crime. And the administration green lights 20% of America's uranium mining capacity to Russia. Well, we've just heard from every liberal news outlet in the country and every Democrat in the country for a full year how this is a hostile regime to the United States. Well, why would these idiots have handed over 20% of our uranium? And specifically to Russian state-controlled nuclear energy conglomerate. Because it was Rosatom is the name of it. Why would they give it to them? Why would they allow the merger? Why would they sign off on something like this? And everybody approved the transfer. That is the real crime. If the Kremlin and Vladimir are that bad and they're such a hostile regime, why in God's name would anybody ever do that? It's inexplicable to me. And it should be to you, too. Now, they knew that congressional Republicans were trying to stop the transfer. But the Justice Department knew about everything that I just pointed out to you. They knew about the kickbacks, the bribery, the extortion, the money laundering, because the Justice Department under Eric Holder, well, he controls the FBI. The FBI had the evidence, the documents, the emails, the financial records, the eyewitnesses. They had them all. They had to know everything. And this is where Robert Mueller, I begin to question him. What did he know and when did he know it? And who is he now to be a judge on anything that is involved with Russia? And the Department of Justice allowing this racketeering enterprise to compromise not only the American uranium industry, but also they waited 4 years before they had one person plead out in a very low-profile manner because they didn't want any of us to know. And by the way, in violation of Justice Department charging guidelines. That's another big, whoopsie-daisy on their part. Because they didn't want you to know. Just like the eyewitness that had to sign an NDA that had infiltrated this entire network that's now being represented by Victoria Tunsing. That's why they made this poor guy sign a non-disclosure agreement and not let this guy tell everything he knows to the American people and the Congress. Now, if you look at all of this, Vladimir Putin believes that their status, and this is Andy's take, not mine, is a third-rate economic power. And for well over a decade, they have sought to develop and exploit. They want to be a nuclear energy producer. They also love the fact that all the natural gas and energy and oil that they supply to Western Europe is a bit of a power play for them. That's why if we ever become energy independent, one of the best things, we'll no longer be importing the lifeblood of our economy from countries that hate us, but we also become a protection for Western Europe if, God forbid, Russia or Putin or his successor at some point wants to turn off the spigot. What's going to happen there? Anyway, so in 2009, Obama, Secretary of Clinton, signaled the new administration's determination. They wanted their reset with Moscow. And part of the reset was nuclear energy. That was central to what Vladimir Putin wanted. Vladimir Putin set out to get into and get the market on American uranium so he can become a big nuclear player. That's the bottom line here. And they did it, and they did it successfully. And they did it, and they infiltrated the entire industry in our country. And they did it, and they were able to bribe their way through the whole thing. The Obama administration, issued the visas for a lot of these people to come and so on and so forth. Anyway, so the FBI was able to understand this from the get-go. The FBI saw this was a racketeering enterprise. The FBI understood apparently this was, a lot of bribery and a lot of documents, emails, financial records, and even tape recordings exist that would explain all of this in detail for people. And as John Solomon and Sarah Carter have been reporting, this one informant that has the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, learned through conversations with some of the Russians involved and Russian officials and nuclear officials, they were all ingratiating themselves to the Clintons. Now, it doesn't make any sense to sign off, does it, on 20% of America's uranium to Vladimir Putin, a hostile regime, does it? In 2005, Bill Clinton helped the Canadian billionaire and friend Frank Gustra. He was involved in this as well, obtained a coveted uranium mining rights contract from Kazakhstan's dictator, and that enabled that company of Gustra to merge into Uranium One. That's the deal that Hillary signed off on. At the time, Bill Clinton is paid to double his speaking fee in meeting with Vladimir Putin. So Putin literally now is set out. Uranium is the foundational nuclear power. The New York Times actually put out a report on the interplay between the Clinton Foundation and the transfer of these uranium assets to Russia. And the United States gets a fifth of its electric power from nuclear energy. But they only produce a fifth of the uranium it needs. So a foreign entity would not be able to acquire rights to American uranium without the approval of the Committee of Foreign Investments in the United States. Those are the 9 agencies. So with the Russian reset going on, and remember in 2000 and what was it, 12, tell Vladimir I'll have a lot more flexibility after the election.
This is my last election. Yeah, after my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and understand.
It's so deeply corrupt. It's unbelievable. It's so deeply, and this is where Clinton cash comes in. And in this atmosphere, they had every bit of evidence to stop it, and they did it anyway. I don't want to hear one more thing about how dangerous, how hostile the Russian regime is. Because the FBI knew all along. And we can get all the answers as soon as the NDA is lifted. Now, some of the good news in this, and I want to know what Mueller knows about all of this. He had to know what his FBI was doing. Now the Senate's launching an investigation into all of this. The House Intel Committee has launched a preliminary probe. And Victoria Tunsing is going to make sure that this one eyewitness that we have that signed an NDA is going to be able to talk. And I think Jeff Sessions is now going to begin an investigation into this. So we're going to have a series of investigations, and we'll get to the bottom of it, which shows we were way ahead of the curve. I told you over a year ago that this was a much bigger scandal than anybody was ever going to admit. And the fact that Bill Clinton had his Vladimir Putin meeting before Vladimir poured millions into the Clinton Foundation, I want to know where all the money came. Now that we know the money was laundered, does that mean that the money that came supposedly from Canadian businessmen associated with the deal, did they get the money to donate to the Clinton Foundation from the Russians? You have to wonder. Who knew what, when, and where? And by the way, Representative DeSantis was on Fox News Sunday this weekend and actually said House leadership blocked a probe into the Clinton Foundation. Anyway, we're going to get into this with Jay Sekulow next. I don't want to hear about Russia unless we're going to talk about the biggest compromise of American security. Do you understand what happened? They sold out our security. Sold it out for millions of dollars in kickbacks. And now they have the evidence and we can prove it all. All right, as we continue, Sean Hannity Show. All right, we got Jay Sekulow, is the chief counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice. Where does this all end up? We'll get his take on all of this. We'll lay it all out on Hannity tonight, and Newt Gingrich, and Sarah Carter, and John Solomon, and Ivanka Trump. That's 9 Eastern. You don't want to miss tonight's show.
Uranium is a big subject. If the mainstream media would cover the uranium scandal and that Russia has 20% of our uranium for whatever reason, and a lot of people understand what those reasons may be, I think that's your Russia story. That's your real Russia story, not a story where they talk about collusion and there was none. It was a hoax. Your real Russia story is uranium and how they got all of that uranium, a vast percentage of what we have. That is, to me, one of the big stories of the decade, not just now, of the decade. The problem is that the mainstream media does not want to cover that story because that affects people that they protect. So they don't like covering that story. But the big story is uranium and how Russia got 20% of our uranium. And frankly, it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. And it's a disgrace that the fake news won't cover it. It's so sad.
As you know, Sean Hannity on his program has been very critical of the Uranium One deal. The president saying with regard to Russia, that's the real story in all of this. What would you say to those critics?
I would say it's the same baloney they've been peddling for years. And there's been no credible evidence by anyone. In fact, it's been debunked repeatedly and will continue to be debunked. But here's what they're doing. And really, I have to give them credit. You know, Trump and his allies, including Fox News, are really experts at distraction and diversion. So the closer the investigation about real Russian ties between Trump associates and real Russians, as we heard Jeff Sessions finally admit to in his testimony the other day, the more they want to just throw mud on the wall, and I'm their favorite target, me and, you know, President Obama. We're the ones that they always like to put into the crosshairs. So, yes, I'm not surprised, but I think the real story is how nervous they are about these continuing investigations.
All right, hour two, Sean Hannity show. Very angry Hillary Clinton on C-SPAN, explaining again and again and again why she lost. She couldn't be more wrong with the facts, as we have major new developments again today, as we have been discussing and pointing out. That, in fact, the FBI has evidence in the form of documents and emails and financial records and an eyewitness that actually was infiltrating all of this that showed the Russians were using bribery and kickbacks and extortion and money laundering to secure the Uranium One deal. This was all an effort by Vladimir Putin, Moscow, the Russians from 2009 on to corner the uranium market in the U.S., and they ended up being successful. And they were successful in large part because Hillary signed off on it. Eric Holder's own Justice Department and FBI had people infiltrating inside this entire Russian operation, and now they have all the evidence. The only problem is the chief witness in this case has been literally handcuffed by a non-disclosure agreement, which appears now that it's going to be lifted. And we have even further news today. We found out last week, at the end of last week, that Bill Clinton had actually had a secret meeting when he was paid double his normal speaking rate at the time that all of this was being discussed with Vladimir Putin before, in fact, Russia poured millions into the Clinton Foundation. And then you get to that, you go John Solomon, then you go to Sarah Carter and a U.S. consulting firm with ties to the Clintons, lobbied on behalf of Russia's nuclear giant, and so much more. So much more. You have the confidential informant now is talking to Congress. You've got the Senate has launched an investigation as a result of the reporting of John Solomon and Sarah Carter and us pushing it on this show and on Hannity, the TV show. You've got other investigations now beginning to take place. Senator Sessions is going to be looking into it. And now we have questions about Robert Mueller's involvement in all this and Rod Rosenstein's involvement in all this and whether or not they have conflicts of interest to investigate anything Russia connected. Here to help break all this down, the chief counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice and a counsel to the president, Jay Sekulow, is with us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Sean.
I know you've been off the grid for a while. We missed you while you were gone.
Thank you.
Let's get your overall take on what they knew back in 2009 and how deeply the money ties to Russia and the Uranium One participants and Clinton's role and involvement in this, because to me it's one of the biggest national security scandals and one of the biggest infiltrations by Russia in the history of this country.
So if you look at what's happened here, and we've done an analysis of the kind of the timeline here, and of course, no one has all the facts on this. But what you have to understand is there's a committee inside of the government called the Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States. They are the ones that approved the sale of Uranium One to the Russian-owned company, which controls 20% of our uranium. At the same time that proceeding was going on, you had the Russia spy ring going on, including Cynthia Murphy, who was a sleeper agent for the Russians, and in February of 2009, she made what was considered a major breakthrough and secured a job as an accountant for a major Democratic donor and friend of the Clintons. Then you have, in 2010, Russians urged Murphy to work for a Washington lobbying firm. She does. Ultimately, the FBI finds out about this. She gets arrested on June 28th. On June 29, 2010, the FBI finds out that the Russians a Russian-backed entity paid $500,000 to former President Clinton for the speech you just mentioned. At the same time, you had this bribery scheme going on with the informant that now has this NDA, non-disclosure agreement, where he is capable of testifying, according to his lawyer, our friend Victoria Tunsing, that there was numerous conversations in which Russian actors described their efforts to lobby, influence, and ingratiate themselves into the Clintons. But let me take it a step further. We have to ask ourselves, and I think we got to ask this with the government. Senator Grassley is looking at this. What is it that the Committee on Foreign Investments actually was aware of? Were they aware, for instance, there was a Russia spy ring? Were they aware of the fact that there was infiltration? Were they aware of the fact that part of the negotiations on this, while it was going on, that there was all these side problems dealing with the Russians, including the spies being taken out of the country? Because on the committee was, as you mentioned, Eric Holder, Secretary of State Clinton, and others. I mean, I think there were 16 people total involved in the committee. The committee's work is not clear exactly how they operated, but that's what Senator Grassley's getting to. So you look at this situation and you say to yourself, why isn't this the subject of an investigation if there's going to be an investigation? Because how was it that we disposed of 20% of our uranium control to the Russians? I mean, it's mind-boggling.
The latest development today, let me read just the first two paragraphs of John Solomon's piece up. As some of the activities of the FBI agents gathered evidence in 2009 and 2010 that were covert and illegal. The headline is FBI watched, then acted as a Russian spy moved closer to Hillary Clinton. A female Russian spy posing as an American accountant used a false identity, burrowed her way into the employ of a major Democratic donor in the hopes of gaining intelligence on Hillary Clinton's department. The spy was arrested, deported, etc. Other activities, go on from there. But the FBI knew from the get-go, and this is where I think Americans have to focus their attention here, is that they now have, and the FBI had back in 2009, evidence, documents, emails, financial records, eyewitnesses, evidence of bribery, kickbacks, extortion, money laundering. And at the same time, she was signing off on 20% of America's uranium, which obviously Vladimir Putin had agents in this country and agents working throughout this network, trying to corner the uranium market in America. And she ended up signing off, along with Eric Holder, who knew this evidence existed. And then 20% of America's uranium goes to Putin. Now, this is long before, quote, Russian influence in our elections, which they have no evidence for. And the media, there's almost a complete media blackout on this, Jay.
Right. Well, you've been on it, which is, great. As you mentioned, I was out with a health issue for a week or two. But I will say this. If you read the letter from Charles Grassley, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, he writes this in a letter. He says, I raised additional concerns related to potential conflicts of interest between the State Department and the transacting parties, that is, the transacting parties being Uranium One. These concerns stemmed from the fact that during the critical stages of the acquisition approval, again, that was the acquisition of Uranium One, interested parties, such as the chairman of Uranium One, made large donations, some in the millions of dollars, to the Clinton Foundation while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. So, again, we have this situation where, in looking at the letter from Senator Grassley, looking at the information that John Solomon has gotten together, that we, in fact, have now a scenario, at least developing scenario, Sean, of multiple investigations going on. And the question has to be asked, the approving entity, the Committee on Foreign Relations, what did they know? And were they aware of any of this? And, of course, that information we don't have. We are going to send out a FOIA on that right away to get that information.
Let me go back to, I've got the full article. As Hillary Clinton was beginning her job, again, the headline is simple. FBI watched and acted as Russian spy moved closer to Hillary Clinton. As Hillary Clinton was beginning her job as President Obama's chief diplomat, federal agents observed as multiple arms of Vladimir Putin's machine unleashed an influence campaign designed to win access to the new Secretary of State, her husband Bill Clinton, members of their inner circle. But the problem is that they succeeded, Jay. The problem is, and not only did they succeed, but the Clintons benefited to the tune of, $145 million to their foundation, A, and B, Bill got double his speaking fee and also met with Vladimir Putin in the process of all of this. And it seems like to me that, anybody that would ever sign, who would ever sign off if Russia's so dangerous, and we've heard for the last year, Russia dangerous, Putin dangerous, Russia dangerous. If it was so dangerous, why would they give Vladimir 20% of America's uranium? And now also on top of it, yellow cake uranium, they're allowed to export from the United States. We don't know where that yellow cake is going. That's the direct foundational material for nuclear warheads.
And here's another question. The FBI arrested and deported the Russian spies on June 28, 2010, but the Department of Justice waited until 2014, 4 years later, to bring any charges. That was after the deal was consummated. So in that time, President Obama's Committee on Foreign Investments, again, approved the Russia deal. So they know they deport the spies that were arrested. They wait 4 years to bring charges, and now we're uncovering this. But this is, Sean, I think this is not only a huge story, it's a huge issue for the American people.
What does this mean for Robert Mueller? He was at the helm of the FBI during this period of time. He had to know this evidence existed. How can he be a fair arbiter in anything Russia when they didn't take the proper steps at the time? And meanwhile, all this evidence was in existence, and the same with Rod Rosenstein and the same with McNabe.
Yeah, well, we don't know, though, and this is to be fair to Bob Mueller, the Department of Justice was on the committee. The FBI was not. So we don't know what the FBI was allowed to share with.
Wait a minute, but the FBI knew about it. I mean, the whole point is that the FBI had the evidence.
The FBI had an ongoing investigation. The question is, and this is where it needs to focus, what was this committee, the committee that approved this, the Committee on Foreign Investments, which has been around since, by the way, the 1970s, kind of morphed over the years. What were they told, or what were they allowed to be told about what was going on? Because while Eric Holder, as the Attorney General, was on the committee, the FBI Director, Bob Mueller, was not. So you don't know, and I want to be clear on this, you don't know what was shared with this committee when they did this approval. But what we do know is that...
Well, they knew about, but he knew about the Uranium One deal, did he not?
Yeah, but I don't know. But what he knows about is what, I mean...
But it was his FBI that had the evidence, I got to imagine, as director, that this...
the evidence on the investigation of the attempt to interfere by the Russians as it related to getting close on the...
Well, why would it be so hard? And there was a report that there were questions being asked. Why did Bill Clinton get double his normal speaking fee? And the money kicked back to the foundation was later.
Questions, those are all those are all legitimate focus of inquiry as to the nature of what happened here. But as it relates to the sale of I need to be clear on this. As it relates to the sale of the uranium, that was not within the department. That was not within the FBI.
All right, stay right there. We'll take a break. More with Jay Sekulow in a second. Chief Counsel, American Center for Law and Justice, Counsel of the President. All right, as we continue with Jay Sekulow, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice and Counselor to the President. We were talking about Robert Mueller when we went to the break here. Okay, I want to be clear. There were 9 people that had to sign off on the Uranium One deal. The Clintons benefited both in financially numerous ways. The FBI knew in 2009, and they had evidence in 2009, that Vladimir Putin and the Russians had a network that they were building to try and corner the market on American uranium. And the FBI at that time gathered documents, emails, financial records, and they had infiltrated this Russian uranium group that wanted to either transfer or get a hold of some of the assets that we have in this country. They were finding out, and the FBI discovered bribery and kickbacks, extortion, and money laundering. Okay. Now, Robert Mueller, who were the people that knew about the Uranium One deal and had to sign off? There were 9 people. Wasn't one of them Hillary? One of them Eric Holder?
Yeah, so it was Department of Energy, Department of Justice, Trade Representative, State, Commerce, Homeland Security, National Intelligence.
Okay. So as the head of the DOJ, all right, as the head of the DOJ, didn't Eric Holder have to know that the FBI had this information?
Yeah, you would think that the head of the Department of Justice would know by the FBI as to the nature of the investigation.
And I don't know why you're resisting the idea that the FBI director at the time, Robert Mueller, would have known, as Rod Rosenstein would have known.
Whether he knew or not, he didn't have. Remember this: whether he knew or not, I mean, he was the head of the FBI, so I'm sure he knew what was going on with the investigation. He wasn't in a position of authority with regard to the sale of Uranium One. He could not be, under the law, an objecting party. The objecting party is set forth in the statute, which authorizes the Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States. And that would be the Attorney General of the United States having that vote, not the FBI director, would have no influence whatsoever.
Yeah. All right, Jay Sekulow, American Center for Law and Justice, I got to let you go. We really appreciate it. You'll join us on Hannity tonight on the Fox News Channel. We'll be having all the new, latest breaking developments. I think this thing now needs, at the very least, a special counsel appointed yesterday. And we're not even talking about Fusion GPS and how they specialized in disinformation, who paid them for the Russian dossier that they got. Because basically it was Russian sources. 800-941-SEAN, our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. All right, 25 till the top of the hour. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program. We'll get to our phones here in just a second. Freedom Caucus members Dave Bratt and Scott Perry of Pennsylvania. Can they get the budget done? Can they get tax reform done? We'll get to them. That's coming up. Also, Phil Robertson now apparently says that he's done with PC. And now that he's not on a traditional network, he's starting a new show on online on CRTV. He says, watch out. It's going to be amazing. So anyway, we had a really great day. The movie is released on Friday, Let There Be Light. We're really, really proud of it. We've been on the road. We actually met with a group of wonderful pastors in Vegas. I thought this was the coolest thing. They actually have 127 pastors that meet once a week from all different denominations. And they try and get on the same page, and they try and, overlap in projects. And anyway, I got to introduce the movie to them on, what night was that? Friday night. And on Sunday, we were down at Pastor Robert Jeffers' church in Dallas.
First
Baptist. And then we saw our friend Pastor Darrell Scott last night, which was in Cleveland. And we had a great time. He wanted me to preach. I tried a little bit. I did a little bit of preaching. What, you didn't like it? I heard a couple. I got a couple of amens out of Linda there. Anyway, so Friday night we had, after we did the TV show, because we had the concert, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we're all in different hotels. Sweet Baby James and Romeo and Kristen and Linda was there. And then Kristen brings in all of her friends because she went to school down in Texas. And Stanginator was out gambling as usual, so he wasn't there. Anyway, so one of the things that I do when I go out, and I do this with my own kids, and I was explaining it to everybody, is that I don't like the fact that we're all very shy when it comes to meeting new people. I'm not shy about meeting anybody. I'll say hi to anybody. I don't care who you are, where you came from. So anyway, at the hotel I was at, they didn't have the Yankee game. It's Game 7, and they're playing the Astros. And I called down because I like to just sit in my room and get room service and hang out by myself because I'm a total complete loser. And so they're like, oh, we don't have that channel. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have that channel? It's a Game 7. It's like one of the only baseball games I want to watch all year. So anyway, we decided as we called down and we asked the front desk if there's a local place that has televisions, a sports bar or something. So we found a sports bar. And this is in Dallas, Saturday night. And so I'm explaining that, I would make my kids, for example, if I'm sitting in a restaurant, I'll offer them money to go talk to strangers at a table and see if they can strike up a conversation. And I think it's just good people skill building in life. And my son is very gregarious. He has, sure, Dad, what do you want? So with him, I do take it a little step further. I'll say, okay, you have to touch the person's shoulder, hand, shake their hand. We come up with a long list of stuff, and he has to find a way to shake their hand, say hello. But it's non-threatening in any way. Just trust me, it's fun. It's all in good fun. And anyway, so then my daughter she's been surprising me recently because she never wanted to play. She never wanted to. She said, no, I'm not doing this game. But I think it's important to be outgoing and say, hi, how are you? Very nice to meet you. Introduce yourself to new people. And do it in a nice, kind, fun way. And if you do it, I think it builds your people skills, and people skills in life are important. So anyway, we start looking at different groups of people that are at this particular sports bar, and then we start saying, all right, what's their story? There were 3 women that came in. What's their story? Then there was a party sit next to us on a huge big table. What's their story? Because they're sitting there, and it looked like a birthday party of some, but everybody didn't know each other. And it was so obvious they didn't know each other. It wasn't like a group. So it was one person turns out somebody's leaving to go to another country. And so I said to these guys that were hanging out with us next to us, I said, okay, well, I'm going to give you $100. Go find out the story because we want to find out if we're right or not. And so they had to work their way in, especially the poor guy that went over to the party. They're looking at him like he had 50 heads on. And then we said, but you have to stay 5 minutes or else you don't get the $100. And he's trying to make up conversation. He ends up getting the whole story out of them, which was pretty good. And you did you like that game or not like that game?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to watch, that's for sure.
Because don't you agree with me, especially when it comes to like men and women? It's like you can look across the room and you can see, oh, that guy likes that girl likes that guy, but both of them are scared to death to say hello. I mean, I see that happen all the time. The number one fear people have in life is speaking in public.
I thought what was funnier was sitting at the table and watching the guy behind you turn around and go, excuse me, are you Sean Hannity? Because you look like Sean Hannity.
Yeah, I know. That happened.
Yes, I'm Sean Hannity. Now here's $100. Go talk to strangers.
Yeah, that didn't happen that way. First, we got to know each other. He had served in the military. Boy, he had game. He really had a gregarious personality, and he was great and a lot of fun. But these are the things that I do, and I only did this when the Yankees were down 4-0, and I figured, I have nothing else to do now.
To a team in Texas while we're in Texas.
Oh, yeah, we were the only Yankee fans in the sports bar in Texas. But the people there were it was such a fun place. It was just a cool, fun sports bar.
Everywhere we went, people were very, very nice.
People are always nice. I mean, occasionally I get one jerk that comes up to me, but
not on this trip.
No, we didn't have one. No. And if it would have happened, I just threatened to break their arm. Kidding, joking. For all of you in the mainstream media, I did not threaten violence to any liberal at any point at any time. I just say, thank you, have a nice day, and keep walking. All right, let's get to our busy phones.
If somebody would call up Sean Hannity.
Exactly. Call me. I have the answers at times. Todd is in Washington. What's up, Todd? How are you?
Hi, Sean. Thanks for having me on the show. You're a great American. We just love you.
Thank you.
My wife and I watch you. And my question, I guess, would be with Congresswoman Frederica Wilson when she came into office on January 2011, and Benghazi, Libya occurred September 11, 2012, when the diplomatic compound and annex were attacked, and we ended up with 4 dead Americans. Where was the outrage from her at that point in time when Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and Susan Rice lied and told the families of the American people that it was caused by a YouTube video? And then when Hillary went on to be summoned to testify, and she said, what difference does it make?
At this point, what difference does it make? Yeah, it makes, you had 4 dead Americans. Yeah, and then you lied to the American people. One of her many lies. I actually think, and when you see what I lay out tonight on television in all its detail, and all the corroborating comments and information I'm going to pass on tonight, I think Hillary's in deep trouble.
What difference at this point does it make?
Makes a big difference if you're lying to the families of 4 dead Americans and you made up a lie to protect yourself and save, cover your own backside. Yeah, CYA. Anyway, thanks, Todd. Good point. Jillian is in Chicago. What's up, Jillian? How are you? Glad you called.
John, just want to say that you couldn't have picked a better time to have a movie out, Let There Be Light. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
And, I also want to thank you for the hard work you do on honest reporting, because America needs that today. It's, the country is on the brink of trying to identify where it's going to go, and you're a big part of it. And so a big thank you.
Well, I really appreciate it. Look, I want to say this about the movie, and I appreciate it. If you go to my website, Hannity.com, I think we're starting in about 300 theaters. Now, if you look at, for example, the movies that bombed this weekend, they're all in the 1,800, 2,000. All of the big Hollywood studios, they're not going to produce a movie like this. They're just not. So what I decided to do as executive producer is where we went our own way, where we've gone the independent route. And it's not to make money. I'll be honest. I love the message of this movie, and I'm very, very proud of it. And I am hoping, if you really want to know the truth, what my bigger goal long term is, and it's not for me, I hope that we can figure out a way to transcend this monopoly that these big studios in Hollywood run by Weinstein and others have on what it is that we and our family see and watch when we go to the movies. This movie is entertaining. It has a message. It'll make you think, heart, mind, and soul. It's going to touch your heart and hopefully move your soul in a direction. It is so well done. I could not be any prouder of this movie. But we have to do it a little bit differently. So we're doing like 300 theaters this weekend, and then we'll do 300 next weekend, and then 300 the weekend after. But, we'll get more theaters the more successful the movie is on its first weekend. And the best way that you can make that happen is go to Hannity.com. Now, for some of you, that's going to mean you might have to drive an extra 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something to see the movie, buy the tickets online or whatever. But it is a message that you don't get in Hollywood movies. All these movies I see today, I mean, I have HBO, I have Showtime, I have Cinemax, I have Epix, I have them all. I have every channel imaginable, and I can't even begin to describe for you how many times I have gone through every single channel I have, and I find nothing I feel like watching. Nothing. Then I'll move to Netflix after that. And then if there's nothing there, then I'll go to Amazon. I mean, I like to watch television, but I think this is filling a void, because here's the truth. The truth is that if you're conservative, if you're a Christian conservative in particular, Hollywood mocks your values. Hollywood they don't even think we exist. So if it's not sex, violence, and a cartoon character and the same, love story formula that they make with Jennifer Aniston and fill in the blank guy, I mean, it's all the same to me. This is not the same. This movie is different. And I'm going to tell you one other thing. I will tell you that the odds are you're going to cry during this movie. It is extraordinarily touching. It's extraordinarily moving. And here's the other thing I'll tell you. You will never predict the ending. Now, that's exactly, and it's not hitting you over the head with religion either. It's not. It's a message, but it's not bam. And it starts out with an atheist who wrote a book called Aborting God, debating a Christian. And the Christian is being mocked and ridiculed on the stage, and the atheist is loved. And then you find out a lot more about, well, why did this guy write a book and hates God so much? And it takes you on a roller coaster ride journey to an unpredictable ending that I think you'll find intriguing. And the only reason, look, I'm going to be honest, I'm the one that invested the money in the movie. And it was after a 20-minute conversation with Kevin, Sam Sorbo, and Dan Gordon, 3 people that put this movie together. And I said, you know what? I'll take a shot. I'll do it. And I let them do their thing. And, I had some say in it. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this is not a Hollywood feature. This is an independent film that we are getting our own theaters for. So it's on Hannity.com. It opens in theaters Friday, and I hope you'll take your family to it. I hope it has a pretty big opening weekend for a small opening, and then we're going to go from there. Hannity's movie it only took in X numbers of dollars. And I'm going to be, because we only had 300 theaters because no Hollywood, we didn't even ask the Hollywood executives or what movie house or production company would want to do this movie. That's why we did it. And we did it all on our own. We did not do it with any help. And we don't want their help. I don't want their help. And, hopefully we can create a new model so we can get a lot more good movies. By the way, and I don't want to be in the movie business. I really don't. But I'm proud of this movie. I really am.
Well, thank you, President Trump. Those words are very kind. He was an amazing man, an amazing husband, and an amazing soldier. And I couldn't be more proud of my husband than I am right now, sir, to be honest with you. It's what my husband wanted to do. Yeah.
Everyone told me how great. I mean, he was the leader. He was the boss. He was their friend. They all loved him. Just like you do. I mean, he's just a special guy. Go ahead, Natasha.
Yes, he's just an all-around guy, and I'm glad that you got to get to know a little bit about him and get to hear a little bit about him, sir. My husband is, to me, he was already my hero, to be honest with you. We've been together 15 years, 5 children. Run down real quick, 2017, 15, 12, and 4. My son is currently in college in Missouri playing football. So when I say all around a hero, yes. But now it's like the world gets to know he is an American hero. So thank you. I really, really appreciate it. I really do, sir. Thank you.
That's so amazing. It's so amazing. And I'll tell you, when you're around, if you could, you know the people to deal with, but if you're around Washington, you come over and see me at the Oval Office, okay?
Yes, sir.
You just come over and see me, because you are just the kind of family. This is what we want. So you just take care of yourself.
Yes, sir.
Come around and see me when you're in Washington, and say hello to your children and tell them that Father was a great hero that I respected, and I learned a lot. Before I made the call, I like to learn, and it's amazing what kind of a guy he was. So just tell him I said your father was a great hero. And take care of yourself, Natasha. You know that. It's going to be a big time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Just take care of yourself.
Thank you so much.
I'm honored to talk to you.
Thank you, sir. And to you the same, okay? I really appreciate it, sir, and thank you. Thank you very much from myself and family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, darling. You take care of yourself.
You too, sir. Bye.
So with all the talk about one family, and this irritates the living daylights out of me, we're going to now politicize the president trying to console the wife of a family member that lost their loved one. And that he says everybody knows the risk that it means to be a soldier, but when it happens, it's so painful anyway. And then Frederica Wilson goes out there and tries to make this a woman that has called the president a racist, tried to impeach him, that absolutely despises and hates him, and then brags, oh, the president mentioned my name. Oh, great, I'm a rock star. And yet Other people are so disgusted by it because the call from the president meant a lot to them. Now, let's be honest. When you lose a loved one, there's not much anybody can say. And we all know that because we've all lost friends and loved ones. And when that happens, you don't know what to say. And it's the hardest thing, but you just letting people know you care is what really matters, isn't it?
Stay right here for our final news roundup and information overload.
If they can't get this tax bill done this year, should they forego Thanksgiving and Christmas? Should they be here if they don't have a bill on your desk by Thanksgiving?
Well, I think they should, and I think they will. I think a lot of things are happening, unless you know it's going to be right after that. But I don't even like them leaving. But I will say this. I want to get it by the end of the year, but I'd be very disappointed if it took that long. It could be substantially less than that, depending on what happens when we send the bill back to the House. You know, they'll send it back, and people are going to go and, you know, make 200 suggestions as opposed to maybe no suggestions, because it's a great bill. It's going to be a great bill. And we're adjusting. We're adjusting so that there's no way that the middle class doesn't greatly benefit. Every once in a while, there's a method under which, you know, it could be that some people in the middle class won't benefit as much as we want them to benefit. And we're making certain adjustments. But I think we're going to have it sooner rather than later.
Can you give us any sense of this fifth bracket? I mean, if you do a fifth bracket, is that $1 million? Is it $2 million? What's the number?
I don't think we'll use a fifth bracket. I only want to use a fifth bracket if for any reason I feel the middle class is not getting as much as I thought they would or as much as they're entitled to. They're entitled to a lot. This is about the middle class. It's really about the middle class and about jobs. And if I feel that the middle class is not getting what I want them to get, and that's going to be a lot because I want them to get really a lot, then I'm going to do a fifth bracket, which will give them more. Bringing the corporate tax down, you know, maybe is the most important, and we have a lot of most importance, but bringing it down from 35 down to 20%, that's a massive, I mean, it's the biggest that we've ever done.
That's a big deal on the corporate rate, for sure.
It's a big deal for companies. It's a big deal for investment. I think one of the other ones is expensing. You know, when you write something off in 1 year as opposed to, you know, over many years, I think that's going to be tremendous. We have so many things in this plan that are going to be for growth. And, you know, your next question is going to be deficits and all. And I fully understand that, and we all understand it. And growth, if we pick up 1 point on GDP, that's $2.5 trillion, if you think of it. 2.5, it more than pays for everything. And I think we pick up much more than 1 point. And I've been the one that's saying we're going to hit 3 sooner rather than later. Well, last quarter we hit 3.2.
All right, that's the president talking with Maria Bartiromo of the Fox Business Network as he now pushes hard for his tax plan. And now the question is, with the Senate vote last week, there now is the at least framework for this tax plan in place, and it is what the president have been saying out on the campaign trail. And joining us to discuss how this gets done, when it will get done, if it will get done, members of the House Freedom Caucus. You know, basically the only people in Washington I trust in the swamp. And that would be Congressman Dave Brat of Virginia, Congressman Scott Perry of Pennsylvania. Gentlemen, welcome back. You know, I say this on radio and TV. Do you know how much other people hate that I applaud the fact that you guys fight to keep your promises, and that I respect that you fight to keep your promises? You know, you got this jerk senator that I supported, one of the biggest mistakes of my life, Ben Sass. And I'm like, you're a do-nothing senator. You can't get anything done. And he sits there. You know, he wants to monitor what I do on Sundays, for crying out loud. I'm like, why don't you go do your job and repeal and replace Obamacare and go fight for it and get on television and convince your colleagues it's a good thing to do? There are people that don't like the fact that I like you guys. That's ridiculous. How are you, Dave Brat?
Yeah, no, you're great, Sean. I think you got the same problem we got. We're just common sense people. And when you say you're going to repeal Obamacare and you look up repeal in Webster's, it means you get rid of it. And the Senate couldn't get anywhere near close. Yeah, and now on tax, I'm afraid to foreshadow a little bit, but the president just gave a little hint there. He said they're offering up, 450 suggestions. I wish it was no suggestions. What that means is the swamp is starting to kick in. And the more the swamp kicks in and gets rid of the special interests, the deductions, the special loopholes, the less tax money that's going to be left over.
So in other words, what's gonna happen now, because they've only released a framework. There's no bill that we're talking about. And a framework is basically what the president set out. In other words, big picture. 8 brackets to 4. And then he talked about the corporate tax rate is going to be no higher than 20%. And then he talked about repatriation. Then he talked about a middle class tax cut. And then there's talk about, well, now maybe we won't have this millionaires won't get any tax cut. But doesn't that go against the principle of growing the economy? Because the top rate under Reagan went from 70 to 28%. Seems like we're missing a part of the equation that would actually work.
Yeah, I'll just jump in quick and then hand it over to Scott. But yeah, the pro-growth pieces are the expensing, the corporate, and the S-Corp, right? The S-Corps are the small business guys, 60, 70% all jobs. And it's key we do the right thing. That's going to creep up as the swamp wins. And we got to make sure small business gets what they want. And then, the Democrats are already saying, right, 80% of the money goes to the top 1%. It's totally false. And what they're doing is they're banging the small business person. They're saying small business are the rich guys. And that's certainly not the case in my district, and I'm sure not in Pennsylvania where General Perry lives.
Well, we just lost Congressman Perry for a minute, so I'll stay on this with you, Congressman Bratt. Now I'm watching this unfold. I've got to believe that the people in the Senate that failed on health care, I got to believe that they know that any senator up for re-election in 2018, that if they don't get this done, especially after the Obamacare disaster, they didn't repeal it, that they're gonna get fired, a lot of these guys. And they're going to be primaried because Steve Bannon has said he's going to primary a lot of these people.
Yeah, I wish you're right. I hope you're right, but I'm highly doubtful on the Senate, and even there's going to be enormous pressure on the House because the old way of doing things, it's dollars, right? It's donors over voters. And if you got your $10 million in the bank, everyone thinks they're safe. In my election, if nothing else, my election showed, dollars don't vote, people do. And so we're real proud in the 7th District. The people spoke, but we need...
Nobody ever thought that Eric Cantor could be defeated. It was your race was just the canary in the coal mine. And I think actually in the Senate, I think Roy Moore is the canary in the coal mine for senators.
Right. No, there's going to be enormous pressure. Everybody's watching. The good thing President Trump has done with his media savvy and his tweets, a lot of people, get riled about the tweets. But everybody knows now the mainstream media is just part of the Democrat Party, right? There's no doubt about it. They're messaging for the Democrat Party. They share the same. You do the best job of anyone, Sean. Every night you show, here, this person says this, CNN says this, the Washington Post says this the same day, the local media in your...
By the way, they hate me almost as much as Mitch McConnell does.
Right. That's right. It's because you're doing your job, Sean. You're doing a patriotic cause. You're awesome.
Yeah. Well, look, I just want things to get done. Look, my motivation is pure. I was giving a speech last night at Pastor Darrell Scott's church in Cleveland, and I have my movie coming out on Friday. And I said, this is a movie because I think Hollywood is corrupt and formulaic and dull and boring. And I wanted to do something a little more uplifting that you can take your whole family to. That's not all sex, violence, and cartoon characters brought to life. I mean, I've seen my 1,000th Spider-Man movie. I'm done with it. And they don't make a lot of good movies. So this is a movie about real life emotions, the heart, mind, and soul. And I think it came out really well, and I hope people will see it. But so I was there, and we were talking about all of this stuff. There's very few people in Washington now that have any courage. And I think the idea that Republicans can't get a simple thing. They used to have an identity. Reagan had an identity. Newt Gingrich had an identity. There were very strong principles that guided the whole party. The president has an identity. I can tell you where he stands on every issue. And he hasn't changed his opinion since he got in office. Republicans, but for the few people in the Freedom Caucus, they seem, and maybe Ted Cruz and a couple others, they don't seem to have. Rand Paul's another one. He has an identity. He fights for what he believes in.
Yeah,
and these other people, you never hear from these people.
Yeah, that positive vision you're talking about, Reagan had that. And, of course, that's the Judeo-Christian tradition in our country and a sense of decency. And what people are waiting to see, it's almost more important than health care or tax cuts. They want America back. They want the positive American dream for their kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I want the dishwasher that Sean Hannity was at 12 to, the dishwasher today to have the same chances I've had in life. I've been very blessed.
Yep, and that's it. And then it is funny, like Hillary will say, we want a village, but she's punishing every small business in the village. And the Democrats kicked God out of the village back in their platform 8 years ago. And now they won't even teach ethics in the public schools. And people want to know why the language is coarsening instead of uplifting. All right. And we're going in the wrong direction.
One of the reasons health care got so painful in the House, and you guys eventually got there, but, really for two reasons. Number one, the leadership didn't build a consensus bill at first. They did it behind closed doors. And then when it came out, nobody had seen it and then nobody liked it. And the second thing was then you had about 100 Republicans that were afraid to actually repeal and replace Obamacare. Is this bill, this tax cut bill, this reform bill, is it going to be transparent? Do you feel like the leadership is reaching out to you guys and bringing you in the process?
Yeah, it has been. And we held out. We said, look, we want to see it before we vote for it. That would always be helpful. And then they showed it to us, and I walked up to the mic right off the bat because I like to be a truth teller. I said, I like what I see here. Everything you named off. The problem is you got $1.5 trillion to work with, right, on pay-fors. And Kevin Brady, he's a great guy, but he's going along with kind of the swamp pay-for and dynamic scoring folks up there. He's going with a status quo Democrat, and he's just got a demand with Paul Ryan.
Well, what does that mean? For most people, they have no clue what you're talking about. What does this all mean?
I know. I apologize. You got to pay for tax cuts. So that's the most stupid thing you ever heard, right? The government.
Well, the president just answered that question. The president said that if you raise GDP by 1 point, it's worth about $2.5 trillion.
That's right. And so that's if we pass the cuts. And to get the cuts, you got to pay for them. And so we got to either name something we're going to cut spending. That hasn't happened. Or else we got to come up with getting rid of deductions, right? So like that state and local pay for is about $1.5 trillion. And that border adjustable piece is going to be $1 trillion. And so if we lose those, we lose the pay fors, and then we can't lower your rates in the middle class as much. And so all of K Street and all the lobbyists are going to come in this next 2 weeks and say, you cannot possibly get rid of my special deduction or my special treatment.
How about we tell those people? How about we tell those people to pound sand and get away from Congress?
Right. Well, and that's right. And then the other piece, because I know that the leadership listens to your show, the scoring has to be very dynamic. We're very Reagan, JFK. They both did tax cuts and got 4 to 5% real growth. So there's no reason we can't get 3% growth. And if
you get 3 or 4% growth, and then if you would just hold the line on spending, I'm not even talking about cutting spending. I've always been an advocate of the penny plan. God forbid Washington ever spend less money on everything. But for the military and national security, just cut a penny out of every dollar and eliminate baseline budgeting, which is, built-in increases every year. We'd balance the budget. We'd be able to pay down the debt, and we'd be doing a lot better. All right. As we continue, Sean Hannity Show, 800-941-SEAN, Congressman Dave Brad of Virginia, Freedom Caucus member. Scott Perry finally joining us, 1,500 hours late, but, we still like the guy. What, did you lose the number? What happened? Did you get stuck in the Senate dining room for 20 minutes?
I was calling and calling. It just kept saying it was busy. I kept on pushing call, and it kept on saying it was busy. So
I'm sorry. I was giving you a hard time, but I didn't mean any of it, so don't worry.
I deserve a hard time anyhow. It's okay. Let's keep us real.
All right, so on Fox News Sunday yesterday, you have a member of the House Government Reform and Oversight Committee Ron DeSantis, saying the House leadership blocked a probe into the Clinton Foundation. Why would they ever do that? Congressman Perry, we'll ask you.
I am struggling to understand why our leadership isn't having hearings on a multitude of things, especially and including that. As you know, Sean, me, Louis Gohmert, Jim Jordan, Ron DeSantis had to have our own impromptu hearing on this IT scandal with the Awan and Wasserman Schultz. We are begging, we are trying to force and embarrass and somehow get our leadership to take a look at these issues that all the American people are saying. The evidence is right in front of you. It's a mountain of evidence. Why aren't you taking a look at this? Where is the hearing?
I don't think they can stop it now. With all the latest developments, and we've got new developments today that we were discussing earlier in the program, I got to believe they're going to go forward. Otherwise, we don't have equal justice under the law. I don't understand this. The Democrats make up lies and we investigate them for years. Right. And they expand on one conspiracy theory after another. And Republicans are like, no, I don't know. They may get mad at us. So we may get blamed for the shutdown. Obama's president. Well, Trump's president. We still may get blamed for the government shutdown. I'm like, I don't understand this level of weakness and seeming, impotence, really. Is there a better term for it?
No, Sean, I was talking to some colleagues and some friends over the weekend about the exact same circumstance that you're talking about. And other than complicity, I don't know any other reason why we wouldn't be investigating, why we wouldn't be holding hearings. What could what could possibly be a good reason other than you have something that you're concerned about yourself that you're involved in somehow? I can't think of any. I've been.
Well, I think what their fear is that they have a fear, a genuine fear to take a stand. And what I think they're missing here is that if they fulfill their promises, fight for what they believe in, that they're going to get rewarded with the very thing they seem to want to protect, which is their power. Congressman Brett.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. You look at the Obamacare repeal, it was the same kind of thing. And so if you had any competition, you had that Dr.
Dr. Josh Umber.
If you provide that competition, that's a threat to the donor class and to the big insurance. And that'll destabilize the market as that kind of a doctor finds his way for a year, and then voters get jittery, and then we get jittery that we might lose our next election cycle.
Well, but to be honest, I don't think I've never met a Freedom Caucus member that really gives a rip about, they don't think about their elections first, and that's what I think makes you guys that much better and a cut above the rest of them.
We don't, but you.
I mean, what's the worst thing that happens? So what? You lose a stupid congressional race, then you get to move on with your life. Who cares? All right, thank you all for being with us. When we come back, Phil Robertson is now unfiltered, and he says, guess what? I'm not encumbered by traditional media anymore, and I'm going to speak out like never before. What does that mean? That's next.
Stay in touch with the Hannity faithful. Join the message board at Hannity.com.
What does a man do when they try to run him out of town for quoting a Bible verse? I tell you what he does. He goes deep in the woods and he starts a fire. For far too long, we have been told to shut up. No more. Here's the deal, America. These are my woods. Out here, I call the shots. Out here, we reject political correctness, or as I like to say, pontificated crap, in favor of some good old-fashioned biblical correctness. So if you're tired of being told what to think, what to say, and if you want to hear someone mean what they say and say what they mean, if you want a healthy dose of truth, if you want to hear the name of Jesus without reservation, well then, I would suggest you come join me in the woods.
All right, 24 now till the top of the hour. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. That is the trailer for In the Woods, which is Phil Robertson's brand new show on CRTV. It's told this way. Now unencumbered by traditional media outlets, Robertson has the freedom to speak his mind and will take you, his viewers, behind the scenes into his woods, his daily life, and to share his views on faith and culture and politics, uncensored and most assuredly politically incorrect. And there's Phil Robertson is with us. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's somewhat of a... I started out on Times Square, Hannity, and I looked around, and in a 360-degree circle, it was nothing but gyrating human beings. I told them the words of Thomas Jefferson crossed my mind. I predict future happiness for Americans if they can continue to find open lands to go to. But if they ever get stacked on top of one another like the major cities in Europe, they'll become as corrupt as we are.
So when were you hanging out in Times Square?
This morning, a lot of people came by. Hey, Phil, and all right, what are you doing over here? I said, I'll tell you what, I won't stay long. But
you're getting the hell out. I don't blame you. Listen, my television studio and my radio studios are right there.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's my neck of the woods, Phil. See what I live in every day?
Oh, my goodness. You look. Here's the deal, though. Remember this. I identified a mass cross-section of humanity going scurrying to and fro, and I want our listeners to understand, Sean, I love every last one of them. You understand what I'm saying?
No, listen, I know, but there's a certain... No. All right, so you did Duck Dynasty for how many years?
That was about a 5-year run.
Okay. And then you got into trouble. But they still brought you back on the air, but you said you're now unencumbered the way you were by traditional media outlets, and that suggests that, you held back a lot in that show, or they edited out, because I kind of know you.
Every time I told anyone, and I kept trying, look, I'm into spiritual warfare. You, Sean, you deal more with political warfare.
Well, it's one and the same, but wait a minute, Phil, it's one and the same when you really think about it, because
one and the same. But what I'm telling you is, when you start talking about Jesus, when you start talking about faith, when you start talking about death and sin, what they do is they tend to exclude what you said. So every time I would do one of those interviews, I would talk about what a great thing God did by sending Jesus to remove our sin, for crying out loud, which I had a lot, and so does everyone else. And the resurrection, I said, just think about it, life and immortality, but those kind of things were always edited out.
It's not going to be, but I've known you for a long time. I've never edited you on this show or edited any interview you've been on, and I consider you a friend. I like you. I love your outspokenness. I love that you're not politically correct.
And that's why I'm waiting on you to get the jacuzzi in New York. I'm here, you're here, get the jacuzzi.
Are you inviting me into a jacuzzi? I don't think I like that idea at all.
No gators, no cottonmouth, and we'll bury the old Hannity and the new one.
All right, so what Phil is talking about, he's not talking about us in a jacuzzi together. So I'm down in Monroe, Louisiana, at the trailer that Phil Robertson lives in, although he built another kitchen for his wife, I guess because you made some money on the TV show. But anyway, so I'm down there, and you're very kind. We're grilling out some steaks, and we're having a good time, and we just hang him doing nothing, and Hannity, you go, this is what you said, I'll never forget, you're sitting in that old grungy chair of yours, and you go, Hannity, you want to get them ratings up? Come on out, let me dunk you and baptize you in that swamp. And I said, Phil, I just saw an alligator out in the swamp. I'm not going in the swamp. So now you're offering to baptize me in a jacuzzi.
Nice.
Which, by the way, I'm fine with. I would do it in a heartbeat.
Remember, you died of sin, and the old Hannity is buried. It's called born again.
By the way, there'd be a lot of happy liberals if Hannity was dead. There was even a fake news report that I died in a bicycle accident.
See, we'll film it, and you can put it on your show.
Yeah.
And, people will see that. What in the world is that? That will give you the opportunity to share.
But it sounded weird when you said, Hannity, let's get ourselves a jacuzzi in New York together. People had no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, you've gotten in this thing up here around the yuppies and all in New York. I was just trying to soften the blow. No gators, no cottonmouths.
Listen, I'll do it in a pool. I'll do it in. I am not doing it where alligators are swimming. I'm just not. I
understand. By the way, 2 days ago.
By the way, if the alligators get me before you finish the job, I'm still going to hell.
Oh no, you're not. No. The Almighty is long on mercy. Day before yesterday, I talked to a guy. He's a contractor, been in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan, and with the latest hullabaloo over the president calling his widow. Look, I talked to the guy. He had served in the military, joined back up, still being paid by the United States government. His skill set, he has many. He's been through hell on earth, many close calls, and he just wanted to sit down and talk with me. So I told him the good news about Jesus. One of the things I told him, which is pertinent for everyone to understand, I said, son, he was like one of my boys I was talking to here, serving his country to the death if need be. I said, in the particular line of work you are in, when you joined up for that, your chances of expiring early went up. I said, it's a dangerous line of work. I commend you and I honor you and respect you for doing it. I said, but just remember, there is a resurrection of the dead according to the Bible. Jesus was raised from the dead to show us all there's life beyond the grave. I said, in your line of work, you need to listen very carefully about Jesus dying and 3 days later being raised from the dead. He destroyed death for you. I said, that way, if you continue in your line of work, you will get out of here alive, even if you lose your physical life on this earth. You will be raised from the dead. Listen, he told me, Hannity, alligators or cottonmouths, get me down there on that river. So I took him down there. We embraced. I love him as a brother. And he said next stop was Arizona. And he was contemplating whether he was going to go back over into Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever they are over there, in Somalia and all those places. But my point is, make sure everybody who joins up for the U.S. military look into the resurrection of Jesus Christ, because think about it, Hannity, it would make me feel better if death came close. You understand what I'm saying?
Listen, I believe everything I think you believe. I think you're more devout than I am. And yeah, do I believe that Jesus is the Son of God and that he came to earth to reconcile us to the Father? Yeah, I believe all of that. And he suffered, died, and was buried, and he saves us from our sins. Yeah. The only question I have is, why do I keep on sinning? I'm not perfect, you know.
Because the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. When Jesus was resurrected, he stayed 40 days to convince him he was alive, Sean, and he went back into heaven. He now is at the Father's right hand, listen, constantly mediating for the ones who are in him. He's mediating for their sins. The same blood that removes all your past sins is there 24/7, so that no sin is counted against you the rest of your life on planet Earth. So what you got to remember is, you can't start from an infant like you did. You were taught as an infant. You hadn't sinned yet because you didn't know what the law said. That's Romans 7, verse 8. Once your conscience kicked in and you got into them early teenage years, that's when you sinned. Those are the ones, that's why you need to be born again. Infant, too early. Hell's not full of little children, Sean. You know that.
Well, they didn't do anything wrong. I mean, they might have entered the world with sin, but it's the sin of the world that we were all born with, right?
They entered the world knowing the difference when they got old enough.
Well, wait a minute. I got to tell you, I know all the time when I do something wrong, don't you?
Sure, but when you were an infant in a crib, you didn't know what immorality was, lying, stealing. You're too young to know those things. When the commandment came to you is when your conscience developed enough.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you going to, on this new show, which is called In the Woods with Phil, it's on crtv.com.
Yep.
Are you going to be talking, is religion the bigger part of the discussion that you want to have?
I will deal mainly with I'm convinced of one thing, that the fix is more spiritual in America than it is political. Look, Sean, once you take God out of the way and you elevate government as being the one who gives you your rights, not true according to the Declaration of Independence. If you expect the government to feed you, house you, educate you, take care of your health, you say once you elevate the government over God, you have erred big time. Because what you're basically saying is, the government will save me, not God. And that's what we've done in America. We've allowed government to supersede God. But all the texts are plain in the Bible. You can't operate without a consciousness of God without going south. Your sins will weigh you down, and that's where we are in America. The people are the ones, corrupt people beget corrupt politicians.
That's true. I mean, we get
government, and that's what we now have. And we're going to try to change that, and we need to get godly men in positions in the government and go back to what our founding.
Well, then maybe you'll have to get out of the woods and go to Washington. Maybe we'll send Phil. First we'll have In the Woods with Phil Robertson, then we'll have In Washington D.C. with Phil Robertson. But you don't even like being in Times Square more than 15 minutes, and you're ready to go home.
Don't expect me to run for political office.
I watched an episode of Duck Dynasty, and the whole family goes on a trip to Hawaii, and you spent the whole time inside your room in Hawaii. You didn't even leave.
It just didn't behoove me to go to hot white sand a lot of water that you can't drink and half-naked women running around. I just said, you know what? That's almost in hell.
I don't know if that. Well, God made women in man's image, and, God put men and women together. By the way, I think we'll call you, when you go to D.C. after you're done with In the Woods with Phil, I think we're going to call it In the Swamp with Phil Robertson.
Yeah. Well, at least I'm from a true swamp.
Oh, I've been there. I've seen it.
It's more a sewer than a swamp. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, well, I call it a sewer every day. So In the Sewer with Phil Robertson.
Hey.
All right. Well, I wish you all the best. You're a good man, and I love the fact that you're passionate about your faith and you share your faith. And I think that, basically you are unencumbered by media outlets. Apparently, they're going to let you say anything you want, which I think is great for anybody. And it's on CRTV, and we always love talking to you. Phil Robertson, thanks for being with us.
All right, Hannity, I love you, man.
You're the best. God bless you. 800-941-SEAN, toll-free telephone number. He is a trip. He is fun to hang. Hannity, you want to get them ratings up? Come on out to that swamp back there. We're just hanging out. There was an alligator in the swamp. I'm not going to be baptized in a swamp. Take a quick break. Got an incredible show tonight on Hannity on the Fox News Channel. We are doing what the media will not do because they're lazy and they're overpaid and they're fixated on anything but the truth and what matters. We'll continue. All right, Hannity tonight, 9 Eastern on the Fox News Channel. We've got the FBI in 2009 was watching as Hillary Clinton, as a Russian spy got close to Hillary Clinton, and a lot of the activities the FBI was watching, were covert and illegal. Well, where's all the talk about the Russians and their influence then? Also Newt Gingrich. And we'll talk about the NFL stadiums being half empty. And Ivanka Trump tonight speaks out. That's 9 Eastern, Hannity, exclusively on Fox.